Welcome to part 4 of our waterproof jacket series. We will now start to put everything together, and I also want to make a first test for the collar here to test if that seam tape will work. So as we want to have it waterproof, the seam tape should be everywhere where we have holes, stitching holes from the needles and so on. And this also does not help, so we will cut that off. And then measure, and then let's test if we can glue that on here, if that works. It's not as easy because it's not so even here. We need to fiddle around a little bit to see how it works best. We have the best results in my opinion. So here around that zipper part, it's fairly hard because it's so uneven. Sufficiently waterproof now. Okay, welcome back to the 4th episode of making a waterproof softshell jacket. In this episode we will start sewing things together, and we start with the pockets here. So we start sewing the zippers in and doing the extra seam, and then the only difference between sewing a normal jacket and a waterproof one is that after every sewing step we need to waterproof that seam we just sewed. That's it, more or less. So let's start. Take care that the zippers are aligned in the right direction. I always want them to be closed when the zipper puller is down to the ground and open if they are up, but you choose. So let's start. Take care that the zipper is more or less in the middle, and then you just sew as normal. Looks like that now. Second side here, need to take care that the alignment is correct. So it's here in a line. This one is not in the right angle. So it now looks like that. I will now sew the second one, and then I'll see you back. Second pocket also sewed, and now we will need to apply the seam tape here, otherwise it won't get waterproof. And next step will be to have the pocket liner over there, and then we will not get there anymore. So I will cut the stripes while the iron heats up. So we will now proof the seams. As you can see, I have 80 degrees as tested. And then let's start. It's not too easy as it's very uneven. So at least we should try to melt the glue at the edges very precisely, because then any water that will get in there cannot get out anymore. And that's how this is done. Then we will do the other side. Do also the second part. So finished. Looks like that now from the inside. And from the outside, of course, you don't see it. Same here. Next will be sew the pocket in there, like that. I will just sew a little bit around, because otherwise, in the next step, we will have here the lower part, here the upper part, and then we, of course, need to do the seam for all, but just to fix it a little bit, I will just sew around. So now I have attached the pocket piece here, and we now can cut the remainder like that. Also here. Then next step will be to sew these two pieces together, and also apply seam tape. So sewing is finished. It looks like that from the back side, and this from the front side, and we will now again apply the seam tape. I already cut some stripes. I'll do a rough pre-ironing so everything is in place, and then go over again a bit more precise, at least on the edges. Same for the other side here. We will now do the same for the lower part here, and then we have the front pieces finished. So that looks like this now, and again we will also apply the seam tape here. So I cut a stripe. That always repeats now. Next task will be to close this seam, the shoulder seam, and secure it with seam tape. This is a very crucial point because here, if it rains, most of the water will drain in, so we have to be very careful here. So I will now cut away a little bit of the seam allowance here to have more space for the seam tape. Same for the other side. I will try with normal scissors now. We will now think about in which direction. I would say I will put it to the top direction here, because then on the outer side there will be the small gap here will be towards the ground, which will make it harder for water to drain in. It's not so easy if you don't iron it down beforehand. Most important part is here the stitching line, that this is covered. So you see, if you don't do something here with seam tape, you don't need any overlock machine, as the seam allowance is always covered with seam tape and nothing can go wild if you once want to wash your jacket or whatever you're making. Well, so now we are going to apply the collar. So I made a marking in the middle, also here. And as we do not want to penetrate the membrane, I will not use needles, but these paper clips for putting it together a little bit before I sew, because we are now, you see, in the very elastic part, and as we don't use the overlock machine with a differential transport, we will need to take care that things will be aligned. Beginning, middle, end should be hopefully enough. Seam tape again. So here at the edges, it may have been wise to break apart the seam tape in 3 parts, 1 part and 2 outer parts, to have a cleaner look at better in that curve, as the seam tape itself is not really elastic. I hope that it will be strong enough to withstand the forces if you stretch the fabric and not rip. The waterproofness will be away. Okay, collar is in now. Then we can attach the lining here, and then we are ready for the zipper. Now seam tape again. The whole process is closing the seams and applying seam tape. So the seam tape is the only special thing here to make things waterproof. The rest is as normal. Therefore, the only thing you need to do such things is seam tape iron. So in my opinion, applying seam tape to the soft shell thing here is much harder than it was for the hard shell, as the hard shell laminate was way thinner than this one here. I mean, this fabric has, I think, 360 grams per square meter, so it's fairly heavy and thick, and you see it with the seams. So this is very thick, and you always have a step in there between the upper and the lower part. And this makes it hard to apply the seam tape in a way that things will be waterproof afterwards. So I will take that, cut it in half. We will now apply the zipper and therefore put some markings here to the upper side in the collar for seam allowance, and now we'll sew this in as evenly as possible. So for the other side, I aligned this a little bit so that these horizontal seams are aligned. Seam tape again. And now the other side. So it now looks like that. This is the end of this part. Thanks for watching. See you next time.